Hello and welcome to the TankSpot Throne of the Four Winds raid guide. My name is Aliena, and in this video I'll show you all you have to know about Alakir, the final boss in this new raid instance. We completed this fight with 1 tank, 3 healers and 6 DPS, but similar raid configurations may work just as well. This encounter is split into 3 phases. The first one's fairly short, it only lasts from 100 to 80% of his health. The second phase is the longest, it lasts from 80 to 25%, and you only have to endure the third phase for the last 25%. For once in a fight, the first phase is actually the hardest one you have to deal with. In the first phase, Alakir is firmly rooted in the middle of his little platform, and if his main threat target is not in his melee range, he will instead electrocute it, which is a channeled spell that deals massive amounts of damage. To counter this, always stay below the tank's threat and don't accidentally pull the boss, okay? Okay. Also, any caster should stand towards the back of the platform, since he will randomly interrupt spells that are cast close to his body. When you reach the platform, have your raid spread out over at least half of it, each person on their own or in groups of 2 if you'd rather. Do make sure that 2 healers are in range of your tank and every DPS is in range of at least 1 healer. If you're doing this in 25-man mode, utilize the whole platform and split your raid up into self-sufficient little groups of 3 to 4 people with a healer each. This is because of Alakir's lightning strike, which is basically a chain lightning except it chains to everyone in a huge cone around his target. The markers on the floor are a huge help here. If each group stacks up on a little marker, you'll never chain lightning strike to another group. His second ability is Ice Storm, which spawns a blizzard that moves rather randomly around the platform. If you stand in it, you get slowed and take damage. This is not a big issue by itself, but you'll notice that Alakir tends to put the storm right in the middle of the platform, and that tends to get annoying due to his next 2 abilities. These are Wind Burst and Squall Line. Squall Line is basically a line of tornadoes that he summons that have a random hole in them. If you've done Sartharion and Wrath, it works like his Flame Wall. To avoid getting picked up by a squall line and potentially die, stand in the opening until the tornadoes pass by. Alakir will always have one of these active and moving around the platform. When the squall line is about to disappear, they'll kind of fizzle out. At that point, they won't deal damage anymore. Wind Burst is a spell with a 5-second cast time that he'll approximately use twice per minute. When the cast is finished, everyone on the platform will get knocked back a considerable distance, and if your raid is not extremely close to his body at the point it goes off, they'll likely get blasted off the platform. You don't die when this happens, but you'll be out of the fight for at least 10 seconds, and if you get unlucky, you'll get picked off by tornadoes right when you land. To avoid this, run towards Alakir when he is casting Wind Burst. The tricky part is the timing of Squall Line and Wind Burst together. Make sure you're safe from any tornadoes when Alakir is about to cast Wind Burst, or else you might get blasted into one and die. Also account for increased run times if you have an ice patch on your part of the platform. It's most important that no raid member gets picked up by the tornadoes, so if it comes down to you having to choose between getting blasted off of the platform or getting picked up by tornadoes, pick the getting blasted off. It's worth noting that you can currently life grip people out of tornadoes should you absolutely have to. Thankfully, when his health hits 80%, phase 2 starts, and this one is considerably easier and more boring. You still have to deal with the electrocute, the spell interrupt close to him, and the squall line in phase 2, so make sure to look out for those and preferably call out new tornadoes and their openings on vent. Phase 2 has a soft enrage mechanic called Acid Rain, which makes your raid take increasing nature damage every second until you bring Alakir down to 25%. The new mechanic this phase are Stormlings, little electric adds that Alakir will summon every 20 seconds. They deal nature damage to everyone within 20 yards of them, so if your ranged members stand in a separate pile away from your tank and melee whenever you don't have to deal with a tornado. When a Stormling dies, Alakir receives a debuff called Feedback. Feedback makes him take 10% more damage for 20 seconds, and this stacks with every new Stormling that dies. However, keep in mind that Feedback only lasts for 20 seconds, so you need to time your Stormling kills just right to avoid losing the buff. If you have very high DPS in your raid, you may choose to only have a few people on Stormlings to avoid killing them too fast and creating a gap between killing one and having the next one spawn. However, most people that are just starting to raid will want the majority of their DPS on the Stormlings when they're out. Try to find the right balance to always kill a Stormling right before another one spawns. That way you should keep stacking up Feedback on Alakir and get him to 25% before the increasing damage from Acid Rain kills your raid. Once you do hit 25%, phase 3 starts and Alakir will lift your entire raid up into the sky. For the rest of the encounter you will fight him in 3-dimensional space. This phase is also a bit of a soft enrage timer, since eventually you'll run out of room to move to. To give your raid the most amounts of space, have everyone fly to the very bottom of Alakir as soon as the phase starts. Fly as far down as you can without touching the lightning at the bottom. Everyone should be at roughly the same altitude, but do make sure to spread out horizontally since Alakir uses a chain lightning and an ability called Lightning Rod that will cause a random person to emit lightning in a pretty wide area. The animation is very obvious and anyone affected by Lightning Rod needs to make sure to get away from anyone nearby. The reason your whole raid started out at the bottom of the area is called Lightning Cloud, which Alakir summons at the altitude of a random raid member. This will look like a gigantic cloud that spans the whole area, and after 5 seconds the cloud will begin to emit lightning to anyone within the same altitude. When a cloud spawns, your entire raid needs to move upwards out of the affected altitude, since being in a lightning cloud will kill you within 2 to 3 seconds. Alakir also uses Wind Burst in this phase, which is now instant. When you get hit by it, just return to wherever you were before. If you're too far away from him at the time he casts this and you get knocked back out of the eye of the storm, you might find yourself getting thrown around a wind hose for 6 seconds. This is usually bad news since there's a high chance that it'll pop you out in a lightning cloud, so try not to move too far from Alakir when you can avoid it. That, however, concludes his Phase 3 abilities, so if you burn him down quickly enough and everyone moves out of the lightning clouds, this phase should not cause an issue for your raid. As always, good luck and have fun. I've attached footage of the whole encounter in case you'd like to see how we dealt with the various mechanics in detail. Now we just pulled Alakir, and as you can see our spread isn't quite as perfect as I made it out to be in the diagram. The important part is really that there are 2 healers in range of your tank and that everyone else at least has a healer or a light well or something to get some emergency heals off. So this is the first cyclone. You see we're all stacking up for this. The tank also has to do this, very important. He does get electrocuted while he moves for the cyclone, unless the opening is at the very front, so you might want to have some extra healing on him during that time. Now the ice patches always tend to be in the middle of the platform, so it actually gets really annoying for ranged when they have to move in for wind burst or when they have to move for a cyclone, so do make sure to account for extra travel time if there's an ice patch on your side of the room or whatever. Now, as you can see here, I know that wind burst is about to come up, so actually move a long ways for the cyclone to make sure that the wind burst does not blast me off the platform. If you cannot change it at all, please get blasted off the platform. Don't get hit by the cyclone. They do a crap ton of damage per second. Now this is how fast Phase 1 actually ends. He's now at 80%, Phase 2 started. We're all grouping up at, well, at one side of the platform. The tank and the melee are stacking up pretty much in his face, while the ranged and the healers are stacking up in the back as to avoid getting interrupted by his static shock. Now the cyclones still happen in Phase 2. We had somebody call out the opening on vent every time a new cyclone came up, which helped a lot. As you can see, the first stormling's out, we kill it. I believe we actually lose the first stack here because we killed it too quickly. Now the second one is only popping now, and it's been like 10 seconds since the last one died, so there's no way we're stacking up this feedback, which is bad. So now that we know we had too much DPS in the stormling, we take some DPS off. That just beats an Alakir, to make sure to get the right timing to kill Stormling right before another one pops and to keep stacking up feedback for as long as Phase 2 lasts. And this is actually a long phase. You have to get them from 80 to 25%, which means there's a lot of Stormlings that are going to be popping, a lot of Cyclones to avoid, etc. Now Acid Rain stacks up pretty quickly. I think it starts at 500 damage per second, and every new tick it just keeps dealing more damage the longer the phase lasts. So the AoE healing that your healers have to do throughout the phase just keeps increasing by a lot. At the end, if you take too long and if you don't stack up feedback correctly, they just won't be able to keep up, and the raid's pretty much gonna die. Especially if the Stormlings are in range of a lot of people, because they deal extra nature damage. So if you can, make sure that at least your ranged are way out of range of the Stormlings, so they don't take extra damage from that too. This is actually a really boring phase, and I don't think I have too much more to say about it here. We just keep repeating the same pattern. As you can see, stack up for Cyclones, don't get hit by them, it's bad. Move back out afterwards, heal up all the damage from Acid Rain, obviously heal your tank, if you're the tank Alakir, and pick up the Stormlings when they pop, they won't be out for long. Just try to keep them off the ranged. Now it is pretty easily possible to stack up feedback to 8 on Alakir. We have done 8 before. I think in this one, since we lost the first feedback, we only stack him to 6 before the phase ends, which is still decent and shouldn't pose a problem if you want to use it as a marker or something. If you do not stack any feedback at all, this phase is going to last forever and going to drain your healer's mana or potentially even kill people, so do try to execute it well. Now when you eventually get him to 25%, he'll lift your entire raid up into the air, into the eye of the storm it's called. And you have to stay in that general area. As you can see, the sand stuff kind of floating around. You don't want to breach that barrier. You also don't want to go lower than the lightning at the bottom here. Now it is fairly important that your raid stays spread out on the general same altitude here. Now whenever a storm, a lightning cloud pops, you want to move out of it as soon as possible, as we did here. You see nobody died, but everybody took like a tick of it, which is still more than you should take. They are fairly easy to see once you get some experience in it and adjust your camera angle right. So you don't want to take too much damage from the clouds, and if you do get the lightning rod debuff, just get out of the raid. As you can see, somebody over there has it, way out of the raid. Sadly, too far, actually died because he was out of range of healers. And all of that just repeats. Lightning rods, get out of the raid. When a cloud pops, move up a few yards. Stay spread out. The wind burst is the only annoying thing because it has a potential to blast you into the relentless storm, which is happening to me right here. When that happens, there's a chance you find yourself in a lightning cloud when you pop out, which is bad. I actually get pretty lucky here. It doesn't kill me, which is good. And we're actually about to kill him right here. It's a fairly fun encounter, and truly phase 1 is the hardest part about the whole thing, so at least if you're gonna wipe early, right? Anyway, good luck and have fun. Those are all the tips I have.